This is going to be a video for Pre-Calculus Unit 3, Topic 1, Part 2, Graphing Trigonometric Functions. And this lesson is D12, Graphing Trigonometric Functions with Transformations. If you would please turn to page 53 and make a note that your homework tonight is page 56. So we have 7 problems here, and we're being asked to simply state the transformations. So I want to remind you, this is not going to be a whole lot different from what we've done before. When we've had, for example, I'm just going to use a parabola as my example. If when we have y equals a, parentheses, n, and then x minus h squared plus k, where a is our dilation and our reflection, n is our horizontal dilation. This is vertical, this one's horizontal. This is our horizontal translation, and this is our vertical translation. So this is not really changed, just the fact that we are now using sine and cosine instead of a parabola. So pause the video and see if you can state the 7 transformations. Okay, so hopefully you made a note that number 1, because it's minus, it goes to the right, and this one goes right pi over 4. Number 2 has 2 transformations. The negative reflects over the x-axis, and the plus 2 moves the whole graph up 2. Now number 3 is a little tricky because the 3 is on the inside. We have horizontal shrink of 1/3. And I actually really like this because you will see this shrink much more obviously than you would with a parabola. Number 4, we have, the whole thing shakes when I raise, a vertical stretch of 3. And it also goes, because of the minus 2, goes down 2. For number 5, the minus pi is going to move it right pi. Now, number 6 actually has 3 transformations. Because it's negative 3, we have another vertical stretch of 3. But because it's negative 3, we also have a reflection over the x-axis. And this 3 right here, the plus 3, moves the whole graph up 3. Number 7, the 1/2, is a horizontal stretch of 2. I just want to remind you that anything that you see inside the parentheses is the opposite of common sense. Like this was minus, but it went to the right. Here we have a 1/2, but it's actually a stretch of 2. So just as a reminder that anything that happens inside the parentheses, inside the sine or cosine function, is going to be the opposite of common sense. Your homework last night was to graph our 6 trig functions, and then hopefully that shouldn't have been too hard because we did them in the lesson. So all you had to do was recopy them. Freebie. All right. On page 54, what I want you to do is I want you to write these formulas at the top. We are going to refer back to them. Okay, so this is going to be our general format for graphing trig functions with transformations. We are looking for a couple properties. We are looking first to see what is the midline. Okay, that's the first thing we're going to do. The second thing we're going to do is we are going to find the starting value. Now, if there is a right or left transformation, that is going to be our starting x value. If there isn't, it will just be 0. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the period to this, get the ending x value. So add the period to the starting x value. Okay. And then we're going to find the midpoint 3 times to get the other 3 critical values. So we are going to go back to those critical values from yesterday. I'm looking to see if I have a separate, like, I'll use the bottom of this. So just as a reminder, those critical values, like if I have sine, starts at 0, ends at 2 pi. So that's our starting and our end point. Here's what we mean by the midpoint 3 times. What's in the middle of 0 and 2 pi? Pi. Point. What's in the middle of 0 and pi? Pi over 2. At pi over 2, it's 1. What's in the middle of pi and 2 pi? Well, think about it. What's pi plus 2 pi? 3 pi. Divide it by 2. 3 pi over 2. So that's what we mean by the starting point, the ending point, and the midpoint 1, 2, 3 times. And that gives us one perfect period of sine using our 5 critical values. So if you don't have that memorized, you might want to pause the video and like write that on the front of your packet because that is some good notes right there. For cosine, we're going to mostly focus on sine and cosine today, so let's just worry about that for now. We also start at 0, but at 0, 1. And 2 pi is also 1. The middle of at pi, it's going to be -1. The middle at pi over 2 is 0. And then 3 pi over 2 is also 0. And make sure you don't make it look like a parabola because I'm totally going to take off points if you do that. Make sure you curve it back down because that's what a cosine looks like. So again, these are quality notes. Like we might have like a little quiz where you just have to throw those bad boys down on a piece of paper. I don't even need to make them 4 different colors. Just saying. Pro tip. Okay, so here we go. When I look at number 1, I see that it only goes to the right. And it goes to the right pi over 4. So the midline is still going to be 0. So I'm going to kind of dot that in really lightly. Okay. Now my starting value is going to be pi over 4. Okay, and I know that my starting value for sine, hold on, let me get some scissors. I'm just going to hack this up. I know this is like a thrilling part of the video is like cut off screen. Okay, here's my sine, 5 critical values. There it is, boom. It's like the Promethean copy and paste, but old school. All right, so I know this first critical value right here, this one at 0, it's gonna go right here at pi over 4. So now I'm gonna add the period. So I'm gonna do pi over 4 plus 2 pi. But I know that 2 pi is like 8 pi over 4. And so that gives me 9 pi over 4. 1, not 9, you idiot. Okay, so now I'm going to count by pi over 4s. 1 pi over 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pi over 4. Cool. And that's where this 5th one, the ending point, goes right here. So now I'm going to go in the middle. So this is 1, this is 9. Add them together, you get 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see it looks like it's in the middle. See how it looks like it's in the middle at 5 pi over 4. So then I need to do the middle again to get this point that's normally at pi over 2. So that would be right here. And notice there's no amplitude change. Like the amplitude here is still 1. So maybe midline and amplitude. That's good. Amp, L-I-T-U-D-E. All right, so because we're just going to go up 1 and down 1 because the amplitude is 1. Because here, see how 1. So I'm going to go up 1, down 1. And you can see it looks pretty much the same. It's a little more stretched out because I'm counting by pi over 4. But otherwise, it looks the same. And there is our sine curve. Cool. All right. So now let's think about number 2. I want you to take a minute and think about what the midline would be for number 2. Okay, hopefully you said the midline would be at 2 because it goes up 2. So let's go 1, 2, and dot in the midline. The amplitude here is still 1 because it's just -1. However, I'm not using this curve because it's negative sine. And what I'm going to do, we should put this on the front of the packet also, is I'm going to flip the whole thing over. So center, center at pi, center at 2 pi. But instead of coming up, instead of coming up and then down, I'm going to reflect it. So this point here comes down to -1. Point. Ooh, that did not come out good. That's okay. Okay, so starting point, there's no transformation. So my starting point is going to be here at 0. It's not a good color. It doesn't show up. My ending point is going to be at 2 pi. The middle of pi and 2 pi is pi. I'm going to put that point down. And then I've got pi over 2. And so this one, see how it comes down 1? It's going to just come down 1. And then at 3 pi over 2, see how this one just goes up 1? This is just going to come up 1. What some people like to do, but I'm not going to junk up my drawing here. If I was on the Promethean board and I had light colors, I might. What some people do is they'll go up from the midpoint or the midline and down from the midline, the amplitude, and put more dotted lines in, and they kind of know that that's like their maximum and their minimum. And there we have 1 period of y equals -sine x plus 2. Okay. Now, the next one is going to be a little tricky, and I'll tell you why. The transformation here is a period change. All right, because we have this 3 here. We have a horizontal dilation. We actually have a horizontal shrink of 1/3. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to take our period of pi over 2, and we're going to divide it by that b value. That's our new period. So make that note. Okay. So that's the only thing that's changing is the period. So pretty much I'm taking this graph right here, and instead of it going from 0 to 2 pi, I'm just going to readjust my scale. I mean, I could put all 5 points down right now. Boom, 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 da-doom, da-doom. All right, same 5 points, same curve. What I'm going to do is I'm just changing the scale. And when I'm back, I'll show you on the graphing calculator how this looks. Okay. My new period is 3 pi over 2, or 2 pi over 3. So we start at 0. That's the starting x value. Add the period. Period is 2 pi over 3. What's half of 2 pi over 3? 1 pi over 3. What's half of 1/3? 1/6. So now we kind of know, like, this is 1 pi over 6. This is 2 pi over 6. This is 3 pi over 6, which becomes 1 pi over 2. Oh, I already have the pi. And then 2 pi over 3. So let me go through that fraction work one more time. Oh, sorry, guys, you didn't see that. Oops. All right, so I know my period is 2 pi over 3. It starts at 0. I put my curve in. This is my ending point. If I divide 2 pi over 3 in half, I just get pi over 3. Not a big deal. If I divide 1/3 in half, so like pi over 3 divided by 2, that's like pi over 3 times 1/2. That's pi over 6. Okay, so I start counting by, I know I'm counting by pi over 6. 1 pi over 6. 2 pi over 6. That reduces to a third. 3 pi over 6. That reduces to a half. And then 4 pi over 6 reduces to our 2/3. This is definitely the hardest one to do, and I will make sure we get a lot more practice. Okay, so we're going to take a look at 2 more. And what I would like you to do, and these ones are not as bad as number 3. For number 4, what I would like you to do is I would like you to sketch in the midline. Think about the amplitude. So I'm going to write these things down. Midline, amplitude, period. What's our starting x value? And what's our 5th x value? So pause the video and think about those 5 things. Okay, hopefully you pause the video and you realize the midline is going to be at y equals -2 because it goes down 2. Okay, you saw the 3 here and realized you had a vertical stretch, so our amplitude is going to be 3. So this is what I mean. I'm like, some people go up 1, 2, 3 and kind of put, I don't know if you can see that or not. I made it really light. And then go down 1, 2, 3. So these light pink lines are going to help me find my minimum and maximum. My period, well, there's no change here. My period is just 2 pi. That means my starting x value, because there's no horizontal translation, is going to be 0. My 5th point, 0 plus 2 pi, I do not know what they're doing up there banging around, but I think we're about to get invaded, is going to be 2 pi. So here we go. What do you need? I just heard someone say, don't go downstairs, she's recording. All right, so here we go. Starting x value is 0. Let me get my little handy dandy graph. And that's negative, there it is. And I'm gonna start here on the midline. Pi over 2. Pi, oh, those are not even, sorry. 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, that's my 5th one. See how this is on the midline? This is on the midline. Now I'm gonna go in the middle. What's in the middle between 0 and 2 pi? 1 pi, that's on the midline. At pi over 2, I have a maximum. Here, the maximum is at 1. See how I went up 1, 2, 3? Now my maximum is going to be at over here at 1. Oh, well, it's still at 1, but, you know, it's 3 away. And my minimum here is going to be down 1, 2, 3. This one is my favorite kind to do. We'll probably do more of these together. All right, we're going to do one more graph together, and we're going to do sine of x minus pi. We're going to kind of follow these questions again. So I noticed that I have no horizontal translation, or no vertical translation, so my midline is just going to be 0. My amplitude, there's no change here, so it's just going to be 1. So I'm going to put like a little 1 and -1. My period, there's no number in front of the x. So my period is just going to be 2 pi still. Now my starting x value, this is different. My graph moves to the right pi, so my starting x value is pi. My 5th x value is going to be pi plus 2 pi, 3 pi. I want to make sure I leave myself enough space. So here's 1 pi, starting x value. This will be 2 pi, not going to use that yet. 3 pi, ending x value. Okay, notice that these are kind of even because it's 1, 2, 3. That's my scale in terms of pi. But what's the middle? Right here, I put the other middle point in. What's in the middle? So if this is 2 pi, this is going to be 3 pi over 2 because, 180, 270, 360. And then I have another one down here at -1. Okay. So what I would like you to do is take a look at page 56. That is tonight's homework. And you have 2 problems you need to do for homework. They're both cosine, so make sure you have those 5 points handy.